Hey guys, welcome back to Fast Monty's Garage. Today we're going to talk about my remote oil filter. Why do I have a remote oil filter? Good question. Those of you who missed it, when we were putting our long tube headers in, I explained that the Doug's header system works really well. It fits on the passenger side really nicely, but it makes oil changes a pain in the butt, because you have to take the oil filter housing out with the oil filter. And I'll show you why in a second. So my solution, because I like to streamline things, if you guys haven't noticed, is I put a remote oil filter in. So you have an adapter plate for your engine block. You can get this at Butler Performance. This Moroso filter housing actually has an oil pressure port, an extra port if you want to put like an oil cooler in. I can still do that sometime. And you can mount this anywhere you want in the car. Hell, you can put it in the passenger seat if you want. Have your passenger do some work for you for once. So I'm going to go through what I had to go through to put it in. I'm also going to show some tips and tricks on how to cut AN hose. Those are actually snippets from a prior video I did. And I'll show you some other tips if you want to retain your filter housing. So if you haven't done so, subscribe, because you want to continue the chaos here. We rebuilt the motor, we put a new Tremec in, we still have to test drive it. That's why we're here. So I'll be right back. See you. Alright guys, here's what I'm talking about. So here's your oil filter. Let alone trying to get it off if it's stuck. You can't reach it. I'm going to take it off. You cannot get it out of here. It will not come out. So the only way to get this out is with the oil housing attached, which means you have to take the pressure sensor out. It just makes a royal mess. You get oil all over your headers. So the easiest plan is a remote oil filter. I'll show you where I put mine. Guys, plan A. If you guys want to stick to removing this every time you change your oil, get a replaceable oil gasket. Check that out. Pretty thick plastic. It's sold by BOP Engineering. I'll leave a link in the description section, but that's what I'm going to use today to remount my remote oil filter flange. So, but you can use this, and that'll make it a little easier for you. Alright guys, this is where I chose to mount my remote oil filter. It's right here on the frame rail. And what I did was, once I picked my spot, I drilled and tapped these holes. That makes it much easier to install. You just put your bolts right in, and then you pick one of the bolts, as I put an extra nut on the back side in the frame as kind of a lock nut, so it wouldn't back out. So that's where I put it. When you're doing AN hoses, you want to put your connectors on your starting and end points, and then you measure your length of hose. And I'll go through that from a different video I did for the water cooling the back of the heads, but it's the same process. And I'll put the part numbers for everything in the comment section, or in the description section. All right, we need to talk about hoses real quick. Obviously we're using nylon braid here. You get some good flex out of it. What you need to do is you need to tape it before you cut it. So I have, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 layers of green tape here. I try to tape it as tight as I could, because this is what happens. I obviously taped this and cut it for a previous job on the car, and it leaves a nice tight end because there is stainless steel in the hose. And the braid will actually start to fray on you like it's doing on this end. And if it frays, it makes it really difficult to put your connector on. So when we get to it, I'll show you how I put the connectors on. But right now, we can measure the length, and it's really easy to do because we know the hose is going to go up pretty close to the end, to this end. I'm going to assume it's not going to go all the way, but when we mock it up, we'll put our bend in it, So it looks like right here. So I guesstimated with my tape a little too high. So that'll work right there. So I'll add more tape to make sure we have some good hold on our fray, so to speak. And I'll meet you at the workbench just to show you how we cut it and how we put the hose ends on. Alright guys, so back at the workbench, we're ready to cut our hose. And there are several ways you can actually cut it. I know they sell shears specifically for braided hose. I don't have those. So you can use a hacksaw. But what I like to use is my portable bandsaw. Check this out. Ta-da! Isn't that awesome? It's actually a DeWalt pipe cutter. It's got like a 4-inch stroke or throat and a mounting plate that you can put in your vise, and it makes it a table saw. Portable. Awesome. I don't have room in my shop for a legit bandsaw, which I wish I had room because I would own one. So this is cool. I can hang it up on the wall when I'm done. The limitation is obviously the 4-inch throat, but for cutting pipe and doing exhaust work, it's awesome. So I attached it to a foot pedal. I'm going to cut right through the tape. Just like that. Got our hose. Now that we're at this point where we have our hose cut, we still have our tape on the ends, this becomes the most frustrating part of braided hose and AN hose fittings. It's getting the end, the hose coupling on the hose. So it's a lot of trial and error, and I can only tell you what I like to do. I like to take my finger and try and push down the edges, because there is some steel in there. I don't know if you can see the steel, stainless steel wire shining through there. And then when I take the tape off, it's going to be a little frayed. I just made it worse. And if you have some tape, a little bit of tape there, it's not a big deal. Now this is the challenging part, is you have to get this inside the hose. So you take the most frayed end and start with that end and work your way around. And it helps to twist it a bit. And there we go. So if you look on the business end, you notice that there is a shoulder, there's threading, and then there's a shoulder. You want to make sure that hose gets as close to that shoulder as possible. So don't be shy, keep pushing. Now what will help in this matter, and this will also help with when we have to thread it on, is to use a vise. Now the issue with the vise, don't just stick this in there, because the steel jaws will scratch the aluminum and it will look horrible. So you're going to have to get creative. Either use a shop rag and wrap it, or you can go to the next level and buy inserts for your vise. So check this out. This is by Earls. Earls is a popular brand name for making AN fittings. It has magnets on it, so it will stick right in there. You can put it in different orientations. We want it this way for now. Then we have the mating side. Look at that. So now we can just push this in all the way until it stops, and I can feel on the other end. Done. Just like that. So we'll do the same to the other end. The beautiful thing about AN fittings is they're reusable. At least most of them are. They'll say that right on the package. And now that I'm talking about packaging and name brands, the system that I bought here is by Fragola. And I like to make sure all my fittings and hoses are from the same company. Fragola makes a few different series of hoses. you can rest assured they're going to work together. But most of them are universal, so it's not the end-all, be-all. Now that we're here, we now need to screw these together. While we do this, we want to put it in our vise. So make sure you leave enough room. And we need to add thread lubricant. This is very similar to lubing our studs for putting our heads on. We need to make sure we lubricate this because it is not going to be easy. And you want lubrication on this end too, because that has to go into the rubber. And we can just start threading it on. And you have to get it started in the hose. This is where the vise comes in so handy, because you have to push it on to get it started. Now once you're started, you still need an AN wrench, because you want aluminum on aluminum, and this is gonna give you a good workout towards the end here. We're gonna try and get as close as we can to that shoulder to make sure we have an adequate seal. So you can imagine if you're trying to do this with 2 wrenches and not without a vise. I did that the first several hoses, and one of them leaked because I didn't have the right fit. Learned my lesson the hard way. So it's pretty tight right now. See how far I can go. Oh yeah! Woo! You can actually feel the heat from that thread. That's why you need that oil. See, the end still turns. That's why it's called a swivel end. Pretty awesome. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing the other side. Alright guys, another great example of how versatile these jaws are. I put the nut this time in the vise because I couldn't fit this angle. This nut got in the way in the vise. So I'll do the same thing. I'm going to lubricate this whole threaded area. Make sure you get the end. It creates a lot of friction. The last one, you can feel the heat through the connection after you're done from the friction buildup. So we'll go ahead and get this started. Oh yeah, check that out. Woo, that's awesome. Let's go ahead and put it on the motor, see how it looks. Alright guys, this is how it should look when it's done. You need to have gap in between your body and your connectors. Make sure you're not touching your headers. Wiring's done. Looking good. And that, my friends, is how I put my remote oil filter in. So I hope you learned something. You know I love AN fittings. I am addicted to them. And in a couple episodes you'll see another crazy AN fitting that I'm going to put on the radiator. So stay tuned for that. So subscribe so you can get notified. And the next episode, I think we're going to do the carburetor, because we are done with the bottom of the car. We are so close to getting this thing fired up. I can't believe how long it's been. So thanks again for hanging out. You guys have any questions, any comments, leave a comment below. If you have any pointers that you thought of or that you've done that can help everyone else, leave a comment. That's why we're here. So again, I hope you learned something. And until next time, you guys know the drill. Building fast, driving faster. See ya.